This is how the world saw Bob Fosse. This is how he saw himself. In the movie All That Jazz, based on his own life, Fosse directed actor Roy Scheider to play him as an artist addicted to pills and work, women and work, cigarettes and work.
It's showtime, folks.
It was showtime for most of Fosse's 60 years. He won a crowded shelf full of Emmys, Tonys, and Oscars for directing and choreographing musical hits like Sweet Charity. His best-known work was his 1973 Oscar winner, Cabaret.
Work. I mean, he worked until he dropped, and we dropped.
Fosse worked, always, to please his audience.
I think they like dancing, so I always try to give them a lot of dancing, and I think they like genuine sentiment, and I think they like to laugh.
The distinctive Fosse style was full of pulses and short circuits. His dancers looked hot-wired. But his work was grounded in his early experience in vaudeville, in ballet, jazz, and Spanish dance. Fosse choreographed Damn Yankees and danced in it with his third wife, Gwen Verdon, who, now divorced from Fosse, was with him when he collapsed last night just before the curtain went up on the revival of Sweet Charity. This afternoon, grieving cast members remembered Fosse.
He instilled in us a sense of breaking our limitations and never giving up on our dreams.
Bye-bye, my life, goodbye. Fosse had a history of heart problems. He made All That Jazz after open heart surgery in 1979. In it, Fosse put on film how he thought his death would be. In the end, his life imitated his art. Beth Nissen, ABC News, New York.
60 years because of a heart attack. Fosse took his imagination and someone else's body and created excitement and grace. Here's Fred Briggs.
It's what he did best. He was a dancer's director. When he died of a heart attack yesterday at the age of 60, Bob Fosse remained in character. He was rehearsing a revival of the musical Sweet Charity in Washington, which opened last night, rehearsing it as he always did.
Typical Fosse. He took the show apart, put, all these little things back in.
And died before the opening curtain. Fosse's legacy covers 4 decades. He began dancing at the age of 10 in his native Chicago, imitating Fred Astaire. Then came Broadway and movies, first as dancer, then choreographer, finally director. Cabaret was Fosse's best-known musical, but there were many others, including Pajama Game, Damn Yankees with his wife Gwen Verdon, Dancin', and the film All That Jazz, where Roy Scheider played a Fosse-like director who overworked, overachieved, and overindulged.
It's showtime, folks.
Like Fosse, the character undergoes open heart surgery, often ignores doctors' advice, and then pushes on.
I like my life. I think that I would be better off if I could get away from work sometimes and not let it eat at me and not be so obsessed with it.
Bye, bye, life. Bye, bye, happiness.
Fosse's art imitated the end of life in All That Jazz.
Death was no stranger to Bob, and Bob is not, in my opinion, dead. Bob lives on.
The cast of Sweet Charity didn't learn of Fosse's death until the end of last night's opening performance.
It is the people that you fall in love with on a show where everybody's pushing for the same thing, and I just don't want to let them down.
Tonight, a cast that doesn't want to let Fosse down will give another performance. Fred Briggs, NBC News, New York.
He was 60. Bob Fosse's art, even more than is usually the case with creative people, reflected his life. Correspondent David Browning looks now at that life and that art.
In Bob Fosse's unflinching autobiographical movie, All That Jazz, this is how the Fosse character gets up in the morning.
It's showtime. folks.
Showtime in the film and in real life involved a man pushing his work and himself to the very edge. Pure Fosse.
I think I was trying to kill off that part of me that I didn't like anymore, which was that self-destructive character who smoked too much and drank too much and stayed out too late.
When he was young, he danced from Broadway to Hollywood and back and didn't think much about death. MGM's Kiss Me Kate, 1953.
I think his impact was so strong because it was quintessentially American. It was full of razzmatazz and joy and energy and a great zest for life and the sheer act of dancing.
Damn Yankees, Fosse's stage and movie triumph with his third wife, Gwen Verdon, and a classic example of the twitchy, brash Fosse dancing style that electrified audiences.
The man was a perfectionist, and he wouldn't settle for anything but the best, and he required it from everybody.
Over the years, he won countless Tony Awards for Broadway, an Emmy for television, an Oscar for directing Cabaret.
From cradle to tomb, it isn't that long a stay.
And in so much of his later work, death was always a major player. From Lenny, the movie he directed about the brilliant but self-destructive comedian Lenny Bruce, to Star 80, his film about the destruction of a Playboy centerfold.
I always thought I would die very young, you know. I was 40, and I said, well, I'll wait a while. Then I was 50. Now I'm 60. I'm going to postpone it as long as I can, I guess.
But last night, just before the curtain went up on a revival of his hit show Sweet Charity in Washington, death came to Bob Fosse. Today, the dancers in the show remember.
He's taught me more than how to dance or how to do a show. He's taught me how to live.
And that is an epitaph that Bob Fosse, a man with showbiz in his very soul, would have liked to lie.
Fosse was in Washington to stage a revival of his Tony Award-winning musical Sweet Charity and spent his last day at the show's final rehearsal.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Bob Fosse's dedication to and love for the musical translated to both the stage and screen. He was one of the few people in history to win awards in 3 major entertainment categories. He won 9 Tonys, 3 Emmys, and an Oscar for directing Cabaret.
Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round.
Fosse directed stars Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey to Oscars as well.
I'm the man thou shouldst marry.
Howdy, Pop.
Early in his career, Fosse appeared before the camera, as in Kiss Me Kate. He went on to become a legendary Broadway choreographer, adding his distinct style to such shows as Pajama Game and Damn Yankees, and to films like Sweet Charity.
I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get up, live it!
Fosse's most personal work was a film he directed and co-wrote, 1979's All That Jazz.
It's showtime, folks.
It was Fosse's autobiographical story of a director, played by Roy Scheider, who was obsessed with work and women, whose smoking, drinking, and lifestyle eventually led to a heart attack.
We try to warn you somehow.
Fosse himself had recently suffered a heart attack.
I don't think I should try to voice my messages or my neuroses on people, but it seems to happen. I don't know. I'd like to just do things that made people think and shake them up or make them laugh or make them cry.
Bob Fosse did not only direct musicals, he directed the highly acclaimed Lenny with Dustin Hoffman and the controversial Star 80. But it's for the musical on stage as well as film for which he will be remembered and appreciated. Fosse once said, "The only salvation for me is work, just to keep on rehearsing. Only then do I experience total happiness." Fosse was rehearsing all day yesterday before his heart attack last night.
It was showtime again last night. The National Theater production of Sweet Charity went on as scheduled. The cast was not informed of Fosse's death until after the performance. Bob Fosse wouldn't have had it any other way.
As you might expect, Broadway's reaction to losing its premier director and choreographer was swift and painful.
You never believe that the people who are important in your life are ever going to die. And directors are very much like fathers to actors, so it's a real loss.
And when I think of Bob, I always think of that tender middle of him, which always came through somehow. But sometimes he wished it didn't, I think, and he didn't realize how big his heart was, his soul, and how plainly it could be seen by those around him.
He really, really liked performers, and nothing pleased him or gave him more joy than to see you and all the other people that he worked with perform at their very, very best. That was always his goal, to make you look wonderful. And I think he got the kind of loyalty and extraordinary work out of people because he directed with a great deal of love.
Theaters along Broadway were dimming their lights before this evening's performances in fond memory of one of their own, Robert Louis Fosse.